Welcome to the 4 o'clock hour. He was a longtime head coach of Baylor Baseball, and they had a lot of great success, College World Series as well, and now a pitching coordinator for the Detroit Tigers of Major League Baseball. Steve Smith joins us on Sic'Em 365 Radio and 365 Sports. Coach, it's great to hear from you. Tell everybody kind of your role right now with the Tigers in travel or scouting or what you're doing.
Well, thank you for having me on. It's good to hear your voice. With the Tigers, I am an upper-level pitching coordinator, which means I predominantly travel to both the AA and AAA affiliate, which is AA's in Erie, Pennsylvania, and the AAA team is the legendary Toledo Mud Hens. And, that's where I go. There's some other stops as well, but primarily just oversee the implementation of what we're doing in pitcher development at both of those places. Last week, I'll tell you this, I was in Toledo and I was scheduled to leave on Saturday morning, and on Friday, about 30 minutes before first pitch, the pitching coach there and the manager, Lloyd McClendon, both tested positive for COVID. And so I got to manage the pitching. I got to be the pitching coach at AAA Toledo last Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And, and those guys were great. Obviously, you're at the AAA level, especially with us, I think all but maybe one or two of them had major league experience. And so you're dealing with a bunch of grown men, and they're there to, not to make your job harder, but to really help you along. But I told them that the whole experience is like a big tease. But it was a tease, and it was like the worst kind of tease. Sometimes you get teased with something and you realize, I don't want to ever do this. And then sometimes you get teased with something and you realize how much you miss it. And that's the way it was. And so it was great, but it did leave me, like I thought it would, looking for the dugout again. So I'm open to that.
Well, yeah, and you just put out a resume. We will put it out for you with this interview as well.
Lloyd McClendon, that's a blast from you said his name, Steve, and I thought of like 50 baseball cards that I have from a kid of Lloyd McClendon. I can just see it right there. We know, that you and Mitch, how it ended there, but you were Smokey gave us the quote yesterday. You were so happy for him. What does it mean to you to have Mitch back at Baylor and leading that program that you guys put so many blood, sweat, and tears into?
Well, I know what it means to 18 years of players, and my feelings weren't contrived; they were sincere. But even if my feelings were contrived, he's the right guy for it, and I think in the greater interest of the program and the whole baseball family, he's the right guy for it. Now, for all those years, 18 years or so, is me and him and Steve Jonigan, and Mitch deserves all the credit in the world for a lot of really good, recruiting classes. But Steve Jonigan, he's also a guy that was very, very instrumental in doing everything that we did. But I think that Mitch has clearly gone out and gotten him some great experience, done an unbelievable job at McLennan. Both of the years that I was at Auburn, we had McLennan guys. And it was really before I took that job at Auburn, which was fall of 17, that summer going into the fall of 17, that's when Mitch and I really, and the whole family, we kind of got reconnected. We all had our kids, all our boys and his girls were, they all were about the same age. They all grew up together at the ballpark, and now they were of age where they were starting to get married. And so we find ourselves at these weddings, and it just kind of pulled us together again. And I felt like when I left Waco in 17 to go to Auburn, that the Lord had blessed me by kind of tying a ribbon on that relationship and getting it mended and reconciled. And so, and that's been 5, 6 years, whatever it is now, 5 years ago. So I'm happy for him. I've talked to him a number of times in the last 10 years, honestly. I shared a story yesterday, though, that it's not like things, you don't go through what he and I went through without there being some scars. And one of the things that had really stuck out to me, I've known Mitch since 1994, and I think he was probably about 28 or 29, maybe. And like to every coach, every guy I've ever worked with, I've always been Smitty. And I was always Smitty to Mitch until about 7 games into 2012. And until yesterday morning, I was Steve. And yesterday morning at 9:30, when he called me with what was going to happen, the first words that came out of his mouth were Smitty. And, I doubt he ever even thought about it, honestly. I never took it personal. But it was so noticeable to me. I doubt he even thought about it, but it's why the call yesterday morning, it's one that it just meant a lot to me. And to hear him say Smitty again meant more than anything.
I don't mind sharing this. When you said that, you shared that story, I got goosebumps. Because I remember how emotional that day was 10 years ago. Because I was in your office. And that's so damn cool what you're sharing, Steve. And for both of you, I think a lot of people, well, if they didn't know that, I think they're going to be just thrilled that's the case.
Well, it is, and it's again. If I could go back and do some things differently, I would do them differently. But we don't get to do that, and it's a decision that sometimes you're in a position in leadership where you have to make a decision you don't want to make, and you seek counsel, which I did and had over several years. It wasn't a knee-jerk moment. It was at the time the straw that broke the camel's back. But even in doing that, I believe in family. I mean, I believe in family, and we were family. And I felt like yesterday morning when he said Smitty, we became family again. And I may be reading more in that than I should, and that'll always be his call. But we were family, and I think it was up to me to find a better way, and I didn't. And I think that's why I'm glad he's where he's at, and it brings all those players together again, because that kind of thing that separates them too. Nobody ever picked sides, and I didn't get any shots. And I mean, I'm sure he got some encouraging stuff, but it's still, you're dividing your family, and I never wanted to do that. And I think now that's been, thanks to Mac and the decision he made, I think that, we can put that to rest and put it behind us. And Mitch is going to do what he's really wanted to do. I would say all the way back to 2008. 2008 was a bit of a watershed moment that nobody really knows about. And it had to do with me being offered a job that I walked right up to the door. I mean, right up to the door and turned down. And, I know that at that moment back in 2008, that he had it in his mind that if I took that job, this would be his opportunity. And I made another decision and wound up staying. And that's just something that it was a watershed moment. Not as much with him, but it did affect him for sure. But it was definitely a watershed moment within the department. And and the relationship there with Ian. And I mean, I can that's for another day, but that's how long I think he's wanted to be a head coach, and now he's getting that opportunity, and I'm extremely happy for him. And I think it's a great thing for Baylor.
Steve, I don't know if this is a question I should ask you, but have you been back to Baylor Ballpark since you were no longer at Baylor?
I'll be honest with you. We had a reunion of the 2012 team on the Saturday of the Texas Tech game. So that's the first time that I have officially been in the ballpark, and the only time I've officially been in the ballpark. But I did do something back, I guess it would have been in February, February. I was in town, I think, for little Raleigh Marie's maybe first birthday, I think. And at that point, I had not driven, so that's, almost 7 years ago. I had not been even close. And about 9 o'clock one night, I drove over there, and, knowing that the gates would be locked, but also knowing I knew how to get in if the gates were locked. and lo and behold, the gate next to the locker room entrance is standing wide open. And I walked in pitch black dark, and I walked out and I sat down on the mound. And I thought about when I had done that in 1980, when I first transferred to Baylor. I lived in Brooks Hall, which at that time was located right where Brooks Village is now. They've torn the dorm down, but that's where, when I transferred, I lived in that was used as athletic housing some then. And back then you had to sit out a year. So I was ineligible that year when I transferred. And many nights I would go out of Brooks Hall and I would jog over to Farrell Field, and I would go sit on the mound and think and pray and sing and all kinds of stuff, dreaming and hoping that I would one day pitch on that thing. And obviously I did. And obviously the whole coaching, that went on there was not ever something that I ever even dreamed of or anticipated in any way. But I've been working on closure for a while, and I just needed to go back over there, and I just needed to have a talk with the Lord sitting on that mound again. And that's what I did. So those are the two times I've been in there. One for the reunion of that 12 team, and then that one when I just snuck in there on my own on that night. And there was enough light in there. I could see the field was in really good shape. and I missed it greatly.
Former Baylor baseball coach Steve Smith with us. He's now a part of the Detroit Tigers organization, their pitching game coordinator. Paul?
What do you think Mitch's immediate impact will be? I mean, obviously you mentioned that the old guard Baylor baseball community is thrilled, but for the guys in the future, what do you think his immediate, like right now, his first strike will be?
Recruiting. He called me last night on his way home, and I said, "How's recruiting going?" I mean, that's just what he does. That's just it. I mean, I'm not saying that's just it for him, but that's the name of the game, and he knows that. And so I think right now, my hope for him, and because I know he's, there's a bunch of guys that jumped in the portal, that were unhappy with how things were going and just different things within the program. So I know step one is just trying to maybe hold on to some of those guys. And I think if those guys will give him a fair shake and sit down and listen to him, I would bet on him being able to do that. Because all of the things that were good about Baylor and are still good about Baylor, and but it's all about people, and he'll bring in good people around him. Some of them may be familiar, some of them may be new, but they'll be good. They'll be good people. But I think long term, it's going to be. You can't be in it as long as he's been in it, and I think it's what the reason he was so successful over at McLennan. And I'll never forget when Miss Sic'Em called me the day she hired Mitch over at McLennan. She had already decided that's who she wanted to offer it to, and she just wanted to run it by me before she went to her president and the board. And I told her, I said, this will be the best hire you've ever made. I mean, this guy had been in Division I baseball for so long, and McLennan is so well positioned, geographically and other ways in junior college baseball that, and believe me, this guy, he knows enough people. There's only a bunch of guys sending him players, and they did. And he's locked. He's stocked. I mean, we had him at Auburn both years I was there, and they were in the other dugouts when we were playing. So I think that'll be and that's the reason. That's the reason you hire him. I mean, that is absolutely the reason you hire him, is to turn that thing around recruiting wise. It's going to be hard until this whole expense thing is real.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just real. I know people got tired of me talking about it, but it's real. You put somebody right now today, you put them on 75%, and they owe about $20,000, and that's a real thing. But that transformation committee, which I don't know if you guys have talked about that much at all or even aware of it, but there's some really big things on the horizon, I think, within the NCAA that could take a program like Baylor. I think he could actually do in baseball there what Scott's done in basketball if the transformation committee recommendations are adopted, and I think they will be, and I think it's probably sooner rather than later. And if that happens, there'll be some ramifications throughout, college baseball through colleges. There'll be some, the separation of the haves and the have-nots will probably really come to be, because a lot of people won't be able to, or won't think they can afford, 26 fulls in baseball. But the Power Five will, the SEC will, and when the SEC does it, everybody in that league is going to do it. And I feel like the Big 12 is still going to want to do it. And you give him 26 fulls, and now all of a sudden you're getting to come to Baylor to play baseball, and they're not paying a dime. And that becomes something he can really sell.
By the way, on that transformational committee, we do discuss it. Dr. Livingstone's on it, and so
that's correct. That's exactly right.
She's on it. We mentioned a little bit about that, in fact, today. Steve, this is the first time. Mack Rhodes has been around since 2016. You weren't here when he got the job. I know you were around, but when he took over as AD, he has promoted within Michael Woodson, Michael Ford, among others. He's also reached outside the box with Matt Rule, Dave Aranda, and obviously with others as well, Nikki Collin. This is going back into the past of Baylor. And is that also something you think is kind of important to kind of reach into the back, not just to do that, but also in a way important to see him do that?
Well, I think it's important to anybody that's been part of Baylor. I think that, every time, Baylor in my 20 plus years being around it, we had to hire, we had changes in president, we had changes in AD, and usually it was on the heels of some major violation, some major issue. And so that AD and or that president was coming in almost with the mission of cleaning something up. And obviously Mac came in on the heels of, the worst one, or at least the most damaging to the university. And I just respect the heck out of the fact that he didn't throw everybody under the bus, and that there were good people there. It wasn't, the issues weren't systemic across the entire department. And a lot of times that's not the way people do it. They come in and feel like, I'm here to show you guys how to do it right. And, none of y'all here knew you're all part of the problem and nobody can be part of the solution. And I just appreciate the fact that that's not what he's done. I also appreciate the fact that I don't think he has an agenda other than what's in the best interest of the student athlete and Baylor University. I don't think he's, on speed dial with a bunch of other people that are pushing their own agenda. And obviously that's, I just jumped into the weeds on that one, but I just appreciate it. I've had an opportunity to speak with him now 2 or 3 times, and I just, I can't say I know him really, really well, but I know him. My read has been really good, and I think that he's been honest with me on a number of things and been incredibly gracious. That's the word I need to say. I mean, he's been super gracious to me. Going back to when we came over there for that reunion, and even in the handful of phone calls I've had with him recently, he's just been very, very gracious to me. And he doesn't owe me anything, he doesn't. And yet he's treated me with such grace and respect. It has really done a lot for me.
I wanted to go back, Coach, to the transformational committee thing. And it might have been you gave it to somebody else, but I got my hands on something you had handed to us at the radio station years ago that Ron Polk had written about. The 11.7 scholarships and like how it kind of flies in the face of everything you're trying to do as a university and promote student athletes, and how it's killing college baseball and you're losing athletes to other sports. It was really well written. But since then, I've always kind of followed and tracked what's going on there. And other states, what people may not realize, put schools like Baylor at disadvantage, because in Georgia, they have a lottery scholarship program that if the baseball players have a 3.0 grade point average, then they're essentially on academic scholarship. So there's all these things that have been going on across baseball that make it non-equitable, and the full scholarships would maybe give us the sport we love so much back in the way that we deserve to see it.
Yeah, and those states that you mentioned, Georgia, well, Louisiana, South Carolina, Florida, Tennessee, every school in the SEC has external money that can supplement the 11 outside of the 11.7 money that's not countable towards 11.7. The only 2 states in the league that don't have that are Mississippi and Alabama. And there's even differences with those. One of the things that I learned while I was at Auburn, I mean, they don't even have academic aid at Auburn, and there's no discounted. They're sitting there an hour and a half from Atlanta. There's everybody going to Auburn's paying full boat, and so they are the bottom of the barrel. Then you go all the way to a school like Vanderbilt, who has an enormous endowment and a small student population. So they fund need-based aid at a level that hardly anybody can do that's playing baseball. And so we talk about it in my circles amongst coaches. I mean, I look at it as payroll. How much aid, how much, and it's happening in college football now, boys. I mean, now you got NIL stuff. It started out cost of attendance, now it went to NIL. So this whole game that's been going on in college baseball for years, in being able to have an unlevel playing field. Well, who cared? It was just baseball. I mean, who cared? Nobody cared. Well, now all of a sudden it's happening in college football, and everybody cares because it's college football. Okay, well, how are you going to fix that? That's what this transformation committee, I think, is really dealing with. There's some bigger issues out there that, I mean, they're not trying to fix college baseball right now. They're trying to fix the whole student athlete and the whole scholarship system and how you're funding them, because they've got legal issues if they don't. But college baseball, I think, is going to benefit from it. But the playing field in baseball has never, ever been level, not even close to it. And now it's happening in these other sports. and they're just having to recognize it.
What's it like to wear one of the great logos in baseball?
You talking about the Tigers?
Yes, sir.
You know, I'm going to tell you the most humbling, incredible experience I've had so far is watching Alan Trammell shag balls and run the bucket, you know, during BP or something. I mean, Alan Trammell is a Hall of Famer. He is in a Major League Hall of Fame, and I see him very frequently because he's a special assistant to the GM and the president. Matter of fact, get this. This will blow you away. So the Saturday that we did the 2012 reunion thing against Texas Tech, I didn't know it until the next Monday when I came to Toledo, Ohio, and Alan Trammell's there, and he says, "Hey, I saw you walk out on the field at Baylor the other day." Wow. He was at the ballpark all 3 games. Alan Trammell, Hall of Famer, was in Baylor Ballpark Friday, Saturday, Sunday of the Texas Tech series, you know, evaluating a player. They sent him in to watch one specific guy, you know, and he was there. And he said, you know, I didn't even think about your connection to Baylor until I saw you walk out on the field. And I thought, here's this guy. He's just so understated, and nobody even knew it. I mean, nobody knew they had a Hall of Famer and Alan Trammell sitting in the ballpark. I thought that was one of the coolest things, and I've enjoyed talking to him. I mean, that's like sitting in front of an encyclopedia on baseball and just listening, not just to the stories, but just the perspectives and stuff like that. That's been really enjoyable.
Steve, we have known each other a long time. I wasn't here for the longest of time. Paul's been around longer than I have, but I just always have enjoyed having a chance to sit down with you. You and I have had some emotional interviews over the years, and this one here, I mean, everyone's blowing up how excited they are to hear from you, and also your emotions and transparency as well. Because you managed those 3 games, I talked to you on the phone about a week and a half ago. It's in your blood, isn't it? That's going to be in your blood for still a long time, maybe forever?
Well, I keep telling you, know, I'm 61. Let's just get it out there, okay? I'm 61. I don't know what that means. I still throw the same BP. I'm in better shape physically than I was at 51, and that's a shame. But I had let too many things crawl up on my shoulders, and I just wasn't doing my job, taking care of me. And the last 7 years has given me an opportunity to kind of regroup in that area, and at the same time just continue to grow in the game and grow in my understanding of people and myself. And David, a couple of nights ago, and this had zero to do with the hiring or anything. This was even maybe before that. I had the thought that every coach out there that becomes a head coach, probably in every sport, but they come to a crossroads, I think, where they got a choice to make. They can either love winning or they can love the players. And we all try to do both, but you can get to the place where you have to make a choice. And I think I came to that place. I think it's why I feel so sad about the last 2 or 3 years there, is that, I think that the pressure I was putting on myself and the pressure that was being brought on me, that I didn't love the players well. I didn't love them well at all. And I think I had loved them well for probably 18 years. And I don't think I loved them very well the last 3. And it really bothers me. But at least I'm aware of it. And I do think that it has really opened my eyes to it. And you know what, when you start, I was 33 when I started, and all I knew was winning then. There weren't any former players with kids. I hadn't made any daddies yet. And so the only way to measure your success at that age was what was our record. But you get to a place where all of a sudden at some point they start coming back and you see, hey, you're doing way more than just winning games here. And you just don't want to lose that. And I feel like I'm at an age right now, and not just an age, but a number of years of experience, that I've never been more able and more prepared and to do the job than I am right now. And that's just, that's, and the Lord knows all that, because He and I've talked about it many times. and we'll just wait and see. But I'm doing my part, and I'm going to try to work hard to keep myself in shape, so that I can, if the Lord wants to put me in a coaching job again, I'm trying to make it as easy on Him as I can.
Steve, there's a lot of people that watch this show now around the country because of our college football content. And some of them probably did not know much about you, and they are blown away by what you've told us. Again, we use that word transparency, your emotions, and going back down history, and it's been fantastic. You and I talked about a week and a half ago. I'll close it with this, and I know you got to go, and we do too. You mentioned when I was on the phone with you about Baylor, they have to make sure the mission statement stays ahead of winning. And we asked Mack Rhodes that the very next week, and he absolutely went right back down the same road that you mentioned about they cannot afford to get sideways on that, and they have before.
Well, this is something else I've thought about in this last 7 years, and it's a challenge, but it's the truth. You can't have a coach at Baylor University that loves winning more than they love Baylor. And honestly, when I say love Baylor, I'm really just talking about love the Lord, for whom Baylor, embraces in its mission statement. It's who they are and their identity. It's just what they strive to be. And if you have coaches there, or even if you have, high level decision makers there who get caught up in the winning, and they all of a sudden love winning, they will compromise the mission of Baylor University on that altar of winning. And I go back to 1994-95 when I first came there. Men's basketball had the worst case of academic fraud in its history. We go to 2003 and 4, and we know what all happened in men's basketball then. And then we go to 2016, and we know what happened then. And it all goes back to we love winning more than we love the mission of Baylor University. And so Mitch won't make that mistake. Mitch's faith is embedded in him. You need to talk to him more than you need to talk to me, and you need to find out some of the things he's been through in his life, and it will blow you away. Mm-hmm. But you'll understand just how deep his faith is. So Mack didn't make a mistake. He's going to get everything. He's going to get everything he hoped to get out of this hire, and I truly believe that.
Yeah, he shared the story, of course, with many about Nate up at Arkansas, and we mentioned that again earlier in the week. Steve, man, appreciate you so much. Good luck. Hope to see you. If you ever get back in town, don't wait till 1 o'clock in the morning and go see the ballpark. We'd love to see you there, and I hope to see you soon, too. Good luck.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it very much.
Steve Smith, Baylor through and through, Baylor baseball coach for many, many years, and he's been a part of Santa Clara staff when he left. And then Auburn, Tennessee Tech, he was the head coach, and now a part of the Tigers organization. When we come back, Mickey Spagnola, DallasCowboys.com, and then Craig's off the